Welcome to day one of the first International Conference on Multi-Perspectives in Education, ICoME 2020. Welcome to day one of the first International Conference.
The theme of ICoME
on
2020,
Multi-Perspectives in
Fronting
Education,
Perspectives in Education, Education's Response to Pandemic, focuses on bringing together academic minds to have a deeper understanding of education in the context of a global pandemic. Focuses on bringing together academic minds to have a deeper understanding of education in the context of a global pandemic.
I would like to specially welcome our 4 keynote and plenary speakers, 55 paper presenters, and more than 600 of you who are participating in the conference both locally and internationally. I believe that it is high time for such an event takes place to highlight narratives of different perspectives and contexts in education, especially now that we're facing a global pandemic. A glance through the list of presentations planned for the next 3 days reveals the diversity of this narrative that we're facing a global pandemic. A glance through the list of presentations planned for the next 3 days reveals the diversity of this narrative.
The next part of the triangle on your left hand side, the whole notion of equity, right? How could you ensure more inclusive type of quality education for all, regardless of whether you have special needs or not, regardless of whether you are male or female, right? Regardless of whether you are from the marginalized communities, right? Based on race, socio-economic class, or like the so-called the religions communities, right? Based on race, socio-economic class, or like the so-called the religions. And the thing is, we know through literature that for TPD to be effective, it must be content focused, it must be active, right? There must be coaching and expert feedback, there must be reflection, there must be collaboration, and it must be done over a sustained period of time. Or teacher professional development at scale. It does have the potential to be able to address issues and challenges in the education sector with respect to equity, quality, and inclusion. It does have the potential to be able to address issues and challenges in the education sector with respect to equity, quality, and inclusion. It does have the potential to be able to address issues and challenges with respect to equity.
So these vulnerable groups can come from different societies, different communities, and as educators, as researchers, as probably administrators, I think it's our job to at least identify these groups and bring some help, or at least administrators, I think make them understand that education in general is there to help them. Bring some help.
You mentioned about
Make them understand that education in general is there to help them.
privacy in an internationalization classroom. How has it changed now that we are working behind our screens? Like
Education in general is there to help them.
privacy in an internationalization classroom. How has it changed now that we are working behind our screens? Like
Education in general is there to help them.
privacy in an internationalization classroom. How has it changed now that we are working behind our screens? Like how were you able to keep up with the new normal virtually?
Yeah, it's a good question.
How has it changed now that we are working behind our screens? Like how were you able to keep up with the new normal virtually?
Yeah, it's a good question.
How were you able to keep up with the new normal virtually?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was some of the professors that spoke. Yeah, it's a good question. To me, it was some of the professors that spoke. Professors, Chinese history. It was some of the professors. I have professors that teach about LB. Professors, Chinese history. It was some of the professors. I have professors that teach about LGBTQ issues. Chinese history. I have professors that teach about LGBTQ issues. Chinese history.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Day 3 plenary session of the first International Conference on Multi-Perspectives in Education, ICoME 2020, with the theme Fronting Perspectives in Education, Education's Response to Pandemic. This is a collaborative project of Asian Journal on Perspectives in Education, Institute of Education, Department of Graduate Studies and Transnational Education, and the International Relations Office of Far Eastern University. It aims to promote the initiatives of FEU for strengthening academic publication, delivering academic programs in education, and creating international interfaces. To promote the initiatives of FEU for strengthening academic publication, delivering academic programs in education. To provide a recap of yesterday's events, here's John Angelo De Leon, Managing Director of AJPE. To provide a recap of yesterday's events, here's John Angelo De Leon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Managing
Welcome to the
Director
PM session
of
again
AJPE.
for the International Conference on Multi-Perspectives in Education. So I hope you enjoyed the 2 days of discussion, fruitful discussion that we just had with the plenary speakers, with the breakout sessions from 2 days ago up until this morning. As Saibal had said earlier, we had a myriad of discussions from yesterday from Dr. Knudsen and to Dr. Berlongan. So I just want to focus on two things that they had mentioned individually. So the first one is the context of university internationalization. So this part is in the initial ideas from her discussion. So initially, she mentioned that curriculum is particularly challenging, especially the infusion of remote learning. As we all know, we are currently in the midst of the pandemic, and most of us, and I mean, all of us are currently using the remote mode of learning as far as how we conduct our classes. The next part is the faculty and staff international opportunities. So because of the lesser movement as far as the movement from one university to another, internationally or locally or domestically, it hinges the bridge from the networks from that university to another university that they hold relationship. Okay. The next part is international research projects, and also the interesting part from her discussion is that she mentioned about the idea of classroom, which is a private institution. So, we don't necessarily focus on the idea of privacy inside a classroom, but she mentioned that it's different when you are trying to discuss controversial issues inside the classroom and also inside the living room. So you might have a bit of inhibitions as far as how you will discuss some issues when you are in the living room. So people inside your family probably might hear some of the different things that they previously don't know that you believe in. So yeah. Okay, the next also is more of connected to relationship building. And also the second point that I mentioned about faculty and staff international opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, movement is on hold for everyone in the education sector. It hinders the advances of building networks to other people, to other academics, most especially if you are a researcher or an administrator that holds dearly these relationships to other people in order for you to, improve the organizations and structures in your own university. Also is the external engagement. She mentioned also about everything is virtually and everyone is getting Zoom fatigue. I think, as I've said earlier, everything is done inside our living rooms. Everything is probably if you're in your office, inside your houses, if you have office inside your houses. The external engagement that we normally have outside the comforts of our home greatly lessens that engagement to other people. But apart from the initial discussion that she had about the context of university internationalization, is the challenges in order for it to be advanced in some ways. One of which is staff exhaustion, especially if you have different organizations that handles different parts of the offices. So probably the staff might be exhausted in some ways. Student stress. I think we cannot stress this anymore, in a sense that we can just go into our different social media feeds and see the engagements of the students as far as how they view remote learning is as of the moment and in their own specific context. And also the geopolitical issues. By that, it means students having trouble on getting from one country to another without any issues. I'm not saying that before the pandemic, there's no issues in traveling, but in the midst of the pandemic, you have to get another set of requirements in order for you to be in another country and let alone study there. But as far as the challenges in the context that she had explained, there's also some opportunities that we can at least abide by or think about in the future. As we've seen in this conference, it gave us an opportunity to work internally and collaborate with the people inside our institution. I know for a fact that in your own school, in your own universities, you may have projects, you may have programs that you might be setting up. So before, probably you're asking for advice from other people, but now you're looking for advice from the people that's inside your own colleges and institutions. So it's a good thing to have. And lastly, from the last point that she had said, is that we may never return to some of our own normal ways. Normal might be, the definition of normal might be different from person to person, but I'll give you the avenue as to how you will define that idea of normal. But just want to say that before, probably in her own context, and probably you can relate to this if you're a researcher, traveling was face-to-face, especially if you're building networks. But nowadays it's done virtually, as I said earlier. In GIST, in order for us to build relationships, we have to travel, we have to meet face-to-face. But in order for us to sustain it, it's another issue that we can, think about in the future. But luckily for us, we have the capacity to use online platforms in order for us to sustain that relationships. So that's the first point that I want to talk about from Dr. Knudsen's plenary speech. The next part is from Dr. Berlongan, and his title was Rethinking Migrant Linguistics Integration in Post-Pandemic Times. So he mentioned several issues. So I'll be just mentioning three things from his speech. One of which is that he will try to please provide some context and specific issues about the migrants that they confront during the pandemic times. One of which is the xenophobia during the pandemic. It's common in Asian and East Asian ethnicities. One of the most common examples that you may have heard is Trump mentioning Chinese virus instead of coronavirus. So this is probably in the news in the last few months. Next part is less linguistic diversity. There's less movement from people with Asian descent domestically. If you're a student, or if you're a migrant that's moving from one country to another, or if you live there for, say, a number of years, you might be scared in terms of moving out to other parts of that country, in the sense that you might be viewed differently with the people that's there, right? So, and in that sense, the the movement of the language that you have culturally might be lessened, right? As far as hey, the last part, the last part of the things that he had mentioned is he said that we have to look forward at least on something, and that's migration towards migration linguistics. He specifically said that his discipline, linguistics, is not necessarily enough to answer the issues that migrants are facing on a regular basis during the pandemic. But in order for us to at least provide a whole picture of how can we address the necessary questions that's existing in our own society and in their own context, we have to provide psychological, sociological, political, cultural, legal inquiries to, provide the necessary things. Or if you are the type of person who are looking for an answer, you have to use these avenues in order to at least construct your own knowledge. So that's most of the things that I can, at least discuss to you apart from the many things that they had mentioned. Hopefully you can divulge on the things that they had discussed, and you can construct your own frame of mind, your own idea in these lectures that they had. So thank you so much. I hope you will enjoy the next few parts of the program.
Thank you for refreshing our mind and for putting everything in a nutshell, Sir Angelo. For details on where to answer the conference evaluation and for requesting a certificate, please refer to all the links flashed on screen. We'll now head on to our first plenary speaker. Our plenary speaker is a licensed professional teacher. He recently finished his Ph.D. in Tourism and Hospitality in Taylor's University, Malaysia, where he also served as lecturer and thesis tutor in the Faculty of Leisure Management and Social Science from 2016 to 2017. He was a full-time associate professor and program head of Hospitality Management Department of the Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management of FEU. At present, he is the director of International Relations Office of Far Eastern University, Manila. His advocacy on local community-based projects towards inclusive growth and development has integrated in his research interests and projects. Today, he is going to talk about developing and sustaining internationalization programs in the new normal, globalization, and a virtual classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, Harold Bernardo Bueno.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me? All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doc, it's clear.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So while I'm sharing my screen, I would like to take this opportunity for staying up to this point of, in the conference, for staying with us. And we have more for you. Okay. Now, I hope you can see my screen. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Angelo, because your recap has a bit discussed the introduction of what I will be presenting for this particular session. And thank you for making my life a bit easier, so that most of our participants will have now a little background on my presentation. Right. So we are still in the lens of sustainable development goals, since Professor Lim has started the conference with SDG quality education, or SDG number 4, then I'd like to end it with SDG as well. So we are still in the lens of SDG, and we are in the quality education, or we're still in SDG number 4. So, in fact, in our training last 2017 with United Nations global school programs, wherein they trained us how to teach sustainable development goals in the classroom, particularly for basic education and higher educational institution. They keep on mentioning about internationalization and globalization. In fact, by embracing sustainable development goals in the classroom, if the institution has embraced sustainable development goals, you're already in internationalization or globalization in your institution, because SDG alone is an international event or activity or goals that is agreed by different nation or different countries. So I would like to refresh you of the need for us to do globalization and internationalization in our institution. So internationalization and globalization experience should be provided to students throughout the educational experience at all levels. UN mentioned that this particular program or our programs for internationalization and globalization should be experienced or should be part of our curriculum in all levels. That means from basic education to higher educational institution. And then one of the researchers mentioned about that there is a need to increase transformational change in education, since the globalized world requires educated citizens who can learn continuously and work with diversity. We are now in the 21st century, and I think we have to make sure that internationalization and globalization and appreciation of diversity is part of our curriculum, and it's always part of the student experience when they are still in our institution. So we have to increase that and transform our educational system that would create appreciation of diversity culture to our students. In fact, one of the target of United Nations in Asia Pacific is in SDG is to create is about global citizenship. That's why they created a program which is Global Citizenship Education, and that is closely related to education, internationalization and globalization program for basic education and higher education. And the end goal for is to create learners, graduates with global mindset. So what about GCED, or Global Citizenship Education? It aims to instill in learners of all ages the values, attitude, and behaviors that support responsible global citizenship, creativity, innovation, and commitment to peace, human rights, and the SDG, or the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're doing this because we want to make sure that our learners will create a behavior or certain changes when it comes to their values and attitude for them to be a responsible global citizens of the world. So learners and graduates with global mindset should possess the following. It's about cross-cultural understanding, intercultural competencies, building global awareness, and critical understanding of interconnected world around them. So basically, our institutions should open their minds of what is happening in the world, and not just what is happening in the world, but it's more of giving respect to others, appreciating culture, appreciating diversity as well. So these are the important skills to meet global intellectual learning. So these are the outcomes that we want to have when we incorporate global and international activities and programs in our institution. One is understanding of global system, how the global world is working, how the global world is interrelated or related to each other, or the countries, what are the so what are the I mean, how we are related to each other. And number two, ability to think analytically and creatively. And number three, the ability to tackle problems and issues that do not respect disciplinary boundaries. Four is the knowledge of other cultures and tradition. They should have appreciation or understanding of this culture and tradition. And then which should be an end in itself and means to interacting civilly and productively with individuals from different cultural backgrounds, both within one's own society and across the planet. And then number five, knowledge and respect for one's own culture and tradition that we keep on mentioning. And number six is fostering of hybrid blended identities. And number seven, fostering of tolerance and appreciation across racial, linguistic, national, and cultural boundaries. So basically, these are the outcomes and skills that we want to have when we create programs and activities in internationalization and globalization. We are in the process of creating a research about internationalization and globalization in the Philippines. So I created a questionnaire, an online questionnaire using Google Form, and I asked some basic education teachers or institution academic managers, and also asked higher academic institution faculties, academic managers, and academic heads. So the initial resort is this, that for higher education, it's really our priority. It's part now of our priorities. And although there are still some who are not into it, and there are those who have not yet planned of having internationalization or globalization activities in their own institution. Now, interestingly, for basic education, you'll see that very limited of them, or very few of them, prioritize internationalization and globalization programs. Okay? And most of them, it's not their priority in the context that that in their mind, internationalization is about going abroad, benchmarking abroad. It's basically about physical mobility. That's the context of why they have mentioned that it's not really their priority, and very few of them has prioritized internationalization and globalization when we talk about physical mobility. And also most of them don't have plan yet of internationalization and globalization. Later on, I'll give you a glimpse of why they don't really prioritize this in their own institution. So interestingly, if you would check research about internationalization and globalization across the globe, in my case, I only analyze researches from Asia Pacific, Europe, and America. You'll realize that very few research is about internationalization and globalization is in the context of primary education and secondary education, or the basic education. Now, there's a lot for undergraduate programs, and there are a bit higher, and I mean there are numbers as well for graduate programs. Now, most of it are from Europe for undergraduate, and for graduate programs mostly are from Americas. Okay, so this is this is probably one of the reasons probably why we have very limited output when it comes to research in globalization, internationalization for basic education. It's because they're still not yet into it, or probably they're into it, but they're not really aware that they're doing it, or their idea of internationalization is really into physical mobility. That's why the interest of the researchers are not really into that. I mean, the hype when it comes to doing research of internationalization and globalization is not really there yet. Okay, so probably if there are researchers here who are interested in internationalization and globalization, I think you can focus on doing research for basic education. All right, so since I realized that the secondary or the basic education is not really into it, they don't really prioritize it based on the result. There are research that would actually recommend the integration of internationalization or globalization when it comes to basic education. So one of the researchers mentioned that students in elementary and secondary schools are to be prepared to anticipate in the new global system economy, increase their cultural understanding, build global awareness, and all these things that we have mentioned earlier in my presentation. I have mentioned earlier in my presentation. And another researcher talks about the administrators and teachers to really embrace internationalization and intercultural context in their institution and in their classroom. Education reform should include experiences to understand connections between local and global affairs. So another researcher has discussed that when we have educational reforms, we should consider internationalization and globalization in that reform. So this researchers strongly believe that internationalization and globalization should be part of the basic education. And the three researchers are into doing research when it comes to basic education. So another researcher had mentioned about cross-cultural skill sets have become a necessity for every child. So it should really part of our curriculum. It should really part of our programs. Students entering university and the global workforce are required to exhibit knowledge of world religion, cultures, and global issues. That's another one for Longview Foundation. So they mentioned about entering the university and global workforce. So that means they are pertaining to the basic education. With increased movement of people between nations, basic education requires diverse skills to work in multicultural classroom of the students. So all these researchers had mentioned that we really have to incorporate internationalization and globalization. I think we're doing it in terms of our materials, in terms of our literature, not really literature, but in our textbook. Most of our textbook has international author or written by an international organization, and so on and so on. So that's already internationalization. So I think we're doing it, but we really have to, in the Philippines, we really have to immerse ourselves to it and continue promoting internationalization and globalization in our institution. So when we asked, when I asked in the forum why what are the reasons for them not prioritizing internationalization, the main reason is budget and financial resources. Of course, when we we immerse ourselves to internationalization and globalization, particularly for physical mobility by moving people from one country to another, we need financial resources for us to pull out that particular project. So it's valid that this is their reason. And the next one is they have limited capacity to start the program. And for number 9, they have limited support from the administrator, especially for the faculty. And then the last one, which is 20%, very interesting, is the limited opportunities. I know there's a lot of opportunities all over the globe, particularly in the advent of internet now, but I think it's not about having limited opportunities, but it's the access to that opportunity, or how will this faculty or administrator will know all these global opportunities available in the world. But again, interestingly, the main concern is really budget or financial resources. Okay, because maybe, or in my analysis, they felt like physical mobility is more of a luxury. Like if we'll have international tour for basic education, then it's gonna be like a luxury in a way, especially if we're talking about how should I say this, if we're talking about government schools in the Philippines, basic education schools or public schools in the Philippines. So it's kind of luxury, and not all students can afford that mobility, physical mobility. But this is because this is how we view internationalization before the pandemic. Like we'll go abroad, or someone from abroad will go to our school to talk about things, to share their experiences, or to teach in our classroom. So maybe for basic education, they would think of internationalization and globalization should be in an international school, among international schools here in the Philippines. But it's not just about that. Internationalization is a broad concept. There's a lot of things that you can do in order to achieve internationalization and globalization in your institution. So this is how we view it initially, before pandemic. But I'd like to add something on what one of the authors in internationalization and globalization have mentioned, that internationalization in education should no longer be a luxury in the 21st century. But I'd like to add that internationalization in education should no longer be a luxury, particularly now in the midst of pandemic. This is actually an opportunity for us. Since pandemic came, our office, International Research Office in FU, it's busier than ever. So we have so much opportunity now compared before. But I will share with you why it happened. So let's embrace it. This is an opportunity. Okay. So when pandemic came in March, we all don't know what to do. We're not ready somehow, but we just have to embrace it and be positive and optimistic of our resources, and be creative of what we can do with our resources for us to still translate internationalization and globalization in our classroom. In my case, I'm working in International Relations Office of FEU, so our focus is in higher education. So in the survey that I have asked in International Relations Officer group in our Facebook, so most of us, we don't have alternative for internationalization activities when pandemic came in, but very few of the officers or directors in different institutions in the Philippines, they have alternatives already. They already created platform or other or programs which are all possible to translate in the midst of pandemic. And I also asked them about crisis management, internationalization program, and most of us we're not ready. We don't have crisis management program for this one, but there are a few that they have crisis management program, but the crisis management program is not really that applicable to the pandemic or to COVID-19. So they still have to also to revise it. Now, we can compare now when it comes to higher educational institution or internationalization activity. Before, we see internationalization as a physical mobility activity. So as you can see, yung blue part, it's all face-to-face. I would say 99%. And there are very few who's doing internationalization activities and program online. And when pandemic came in, we did it home-based. And when it's home-based, everything has to be done, or there's no mobility, there's no physical mobility from one country to another. So we have no choice but to do it 100% home-based. Okay, so as mentioned, home-based or campus-based internationalization at home could still be translated. This is the only way we can do it during that period. So these are adding international perspective in your curriculum, teaching and learning, although we have this already, but this is more of a revising it and trying to incorporate more international perspective in our curriculum and in the teaching and learning experience of our students. Open access education, we can do domestic student or faculty, we could we have international students in our institutions. They are locked down too, but still they're part of a virtual culture. So that would help as well in internationalization. And we also have international student scholars and then incorporating extracurricular activities of internationalization program. For basic education, I know you have a United Nations Day that is basically more of appreciation of culture and appreciation of diversity. So you could continue and create more of those activities at home or in your institution to be able to translate internationalization. And of course, research, you can do international perspective. And you can do research with international perspective. So yeah, that's it. So for cross-border, of course, 100% stop because all borders are closed, our airline are closed. We are all stuck at home, so there's no cross-border at all. There's no cross-border mobility or cross-border internationalization during the pandemic. But we believe that internationalization should not stop by the pandemic, and all our efforts and activities in higher educational institution or in basic education should not stop. I mean, we should continue. We have to be creative. We have to find ways for us to be able to still translate internationalization and globalization in our institution and in our classroom. So now we have borderless internationalization or the digital connectedness. So through technology, through connectivity, wireless connectivity, we are borderless. That's the only platform we can use at the moment for us to be borderless. So we don't have boundaries. unless, of course, technological boundaries is there, but in terms of reaching out to our partners, talking to researchers abroad, to do a collaborative research, we can still use. We are borderless because we're using digital platform. For borderless internationalization, there's no need for passport, there's no need for visa, there's no need for airfare and transfer, no need for accommodation. So, and internationalization would still be possible without all these things. Actually, now that we are in this platform, that we're using technology to translate internationalization, we were able to streamline everything. Before we could send student for a particular program to Canada, it will take us like 2 to 3 months just to process their documents and their papers, just to go to Canada for a specific training. Now, even for a few days or a week, we could not really send students, but we could enroll students to a specific program offered by our partners abroad without considering all these things, this tedious work for an international relations office. So no more of this. Isn't it amazing that that we can still do internationalization without passport, visa, airfare, transfer, accommodation, and some other things that we need? I don't need to go to Bureau of Immigration just to get an approval for our students to go abroad for internship and some other international program. I don't have to go to CHED to ask for approval for them to go abroad, or for them to go abroad for a specific training. So everything is we expedite everything because of technology and because of pandemic. Life is easier now for IRO. No budget worries, of course. Before, let's say we have specific program for let's say business to go to Canada. I mean, so that we could only select 2 or 3 students, or we could only send 2 or 3 students to go to Canada because of the budget limitation. But now we could send 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 students because it's all what do you call this? Virtual. It's all online. So, but of course there are changes. Maybe you're asking. Of course there are limitations as well when it comes to experience. But again, we are limited by what we have now. We just have to continue it and be creative of what resources is available for us to continue internationalization. No budget worries. Okay, so because of the technology of our connectivity, digital platform, we're able to build more connection, to build more projects, we can give a conference for free like this. It's not that we are really want to have more participants to join, but because we don't have to spend that much for your food, for the venue, and all these expenses, we could pull out an international conference like this and give it for free to you. So that's one of the beauty of pandemic, I would say. It's not that that we want the pandemic to still continue, but I'm just being optimistic at this point of time. And it's really amazing how we were able to pull out an international conference and give it for free. That would not have happened if we will do it face to face, because there are it will incur cost when we do it face to face. Okay, what you just need, I think, if this is virtual platform, you just need your charm, you just need your smile and your virtual hospitality to pull out partnership, to pull out projects and programs from other institution or from your partner institution. I would like to give you a data. In our case, in FEU, we have inbound and outbound internationalization program based on my data because, I mean, IRO has just started a few years ago. So as you can see in the data, I have the data of 2018 to 2019, school year 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021. So as you can see, 2018, 2019, we're into it, but it's not that extensive in terms of numbers that we could send inbound and outbound abroad, because we even though we're private institution, we still have limitation when it comes to financial resources and budget. We can't send all our students to go abroad for free. But we also offer international programs for our students who are able to pay. So we offer those programs to them as well. But as much as possible in IRO, we want to give opportunity for our students for free, and we usually send 2 or 3 students abroad, and then they'll do echo seminar to their classmate of what they have learned abroad, so that we could also translate in a way what they have experienced in that specific program. So looking back at the data, you can observe that in 2019 to 2020, our inbound and outbound numbers decreased because 2019 to 2020 is around June 2019 to May 2019, 2020. So half of the semester, half of the year, pandemic came. Or during the second semester, pandemic came, so we have to stop all our programs. Now, come June or June 2020 to 2021, actually, we're still in 2020, but our school year is 2020 to 2021. You can see like an increase of numbers in terms of outbound and inbound programs and activities we're doing in FEU. This is because of the advent of technology. And because technology is there and they don't need to spend that much money to pull out one program, some of our partner institutions are giving it for free so we could send more students with them. But they have to do the program virtually. So amazingly, it's amazing that we have, we increase our numbers in terms of inbound and outbound programs and activities just because of the pandemic and because we're maximizing technology. So for inbound, these are our programs that we created in FEU, but they have to take it online for our international partners. Now for outbound, these are activities that our partners has created and they invited FEU, and our FEU students has attended the program virtually. So in fact, for our Institute of Education, they're now doing virtual internship in Indonesia. So some of our FEU students in the Institute of Education is now teaching or doing their practice teaching in Indonesia. So they're teaching English in Indonesia right now. So those are the activities that we're doing, and again, you'll see how we could provide more opportunities to our students at this point of time. And there are a lot of opportunities out there, and most of it are free. So you can just search and look for those free opportunities for your students. Now let's go to the developing digital partnership and collaboration. So right now we are in the pandemic, so everything should be virtual. So our partnership and collaboration should start and be pulled out virtually at this point. I remember I read one article And they mentioned there, the author mentioned there, that the majority of our future collaboration will be digital. That was 2018. And I think that future he is mentioning is now because all of our collaboration and partnership are like digital, online, and virtual. So many educators and students will work, partner, collaborate with people all over the world that they may never meet. So that's also possible. Like recently, we had cross-border conversation for nursing faculty and nursing students. They're not able to see each other, but they extended themselves uh, in their social media. So they're friends now in social media. They communicate in social media. They're creating projects now. Our teachers are creating projects and activities through social media. And they were invited to speak virtually in international classroom in international classroom because of that cross-border conversation. They never see each other face to face, but the relationship, I mean, they're still able to build relationship and partnership with those people that they have met virtually because of that specific project. So again, the future is now, so we have to embrace that now. So I think the most important thing that we have to consider is the top management and administrators' support and commitment. Because in doing internationalization, we have to deal with a lot of people. We have to deal with a lot of things. So we really need their support, particularly now we're doing it virtually. And I think I would not see any problem from our top management and administrators supporting us in doing internationalization and globalization in our institution and in our classroom. More than ever that we could save money, we could, and despite of that limitation in financial resources, we could still create programs like this. We could still create activities. We could still partner with different institutions around the globe virtually. I don't see any problem with that because most of the time, the concern of our top management and administrators is our financial capabilities, especially for government institution or government school or public schools in the Philippines for basic ed. And now that we are virtual in a virtual platform, I think you have to search in the internet. It's all, most of the information are there, and then you screen what you have searched because there are organizations who would tell you they will help you, but in the end it's like a scam. So you have to be very, very careful in partnering with an organization or asking someone to be part of your international network. And then you could select out of that screen. You can search someone you have read in an article in the internet and message that person in probably Facebook, LinkedIn, and some other social media platform because I would say most of these authors, they have their own platform to communicate in the world. So you just have to search. Now, if it's research, we have ResearchGate, academia, where you can message that author and be friends with them virtually. I've tried that during my PhD. So I saw one book that talks about the topic that I am doing. So I looked for that guy in Messenger and I saw him and messaged him, and I asked him to edit, not really edit, but to give comments to some parts of my research. I'm telling you, these people, you might think that these people are not reachable, or you can they might snub you, or they might not talk to you, but believe it or not, just try it. They will definitely i mean most of them will really answer you and will be happy to answer your inquiries. Okay, especially if your intention is good, I don't think they will not answer you. You could build connection by just talking to them in a virtual platform, and from that you could ask them, can you talk in my virtual classroom? Can you share your thoughts in my virtual classroom? Can you can you share materials to me so I could share it with my students as well? So those kind of things. I'm talking about now personal connection. Later on, I'll discuss more about that. But for for us to institutionalize it, be friends with them in Facebook, and then maybe you could, what you can do is to endorse them to somebody who is in charge of internationalization, linkages, and partnership with your institution. So you can formalize that particular project that you have in mind, probably through that virtual platform, digital platform, magkaroon kayo ng collaboration with your with your counterpart abroad or with your friends abroad. You just have to formalize it as somebody in charge in your institution to communicate, or you could endorse that person to the one in charge in your institution. If nobody is in charge, then take charge. Especially for our basic education, take charge. Create a memorandum of understanding. I know it will give you a lot of work, but it will make a difference to you, to our students, and to our institution. Just be, be open-minded about it. Right. So next one, yun nga, I mentioned about it already. You have to communicate, and then there's another thing. You join virtual platform. There are a lot of educational platform, page, or group in Facebook where you could, you could join there and be part of that group, so you could get international opportunities. There's a lot of groups where you can join in Facebook, where they normally post opportunities, global opportunities abroad, scholarship, free conference, exchange faculty, exchange students. So all those things, they're posting it in different platform virtually. So you just have to search for it in the internet, especially when it comes to your interest. So you will be informed of what is happening, and you will be informed of this opportunity where you can apply, especially particularly if you want to have to apply for a grant. They will post it there if there are grants available globally, or a competition, an international and global competition. They normally post it there. So you just have to be open. And again, to formalize it, you have to endorse it to the in charge in your institution when it comes to linkages. But you should start it within yourself at least. Now, if it's your job, like in my case, then I have to open it to all the deans. These are I have to open it to the administrators, that these are the opportunities. So, and then I have to process everything for it to be formalized. Then yes, of course, to formalize it, you have to seal the partnership, at least for institutional cooperation. It's important that you protect yourself, and it's a way of building trust as well, that you will have a black and white of whatever cooperation or partnership you will do, even though it's virtually. And now, of course, you can still to formally announce it in public. Maybe you can do a virtual memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement signing. Then you can post it in your website or in your Facebook page, so that it will be publicly announced. So that's it. So for digital collaboration when it comes to institutions, you have to create a framework. So that framework should be mutually beneficial for both for both institutions for long-term relationship. It should be shared responsibility and shared benefits. In a relationship, any kind of relationship, you have to make sure that it's mutual, that both will benefit from that partnership, cooperation, project, and collaboration that you are doing. If it's not mutual, then you have to look for another partner. That's what I can tell you. So the best is for you to have a mutual beneficial relationship. So you have to create a framework on how you will do it, because different institution, different organization, we all have our own policies, regulation within our institution. So you have to merge that when it comes to the policy and regulations of your partner institution. So it will, I mean, the framework will be, I mean, we will all have different framework basically based on our partners, based on our linkages. But the most important thing here is you share the responsibility, and it should be shared benefits. There are three levels of collaboration and partnership. In a way, this is your matrix or your way to evaluate how effective you are in terms of collaboration and partnership. So there should be impact when it comes to individuals. So students should be able to experience internationalization and globalization programs. These are exchange program activities, long-term and short-term summer program, and all those kind of international activities that they can do. Training, immersion abroad, or training immersion given by international organization or international institution. Now, for institution, usually they'll benefit from internationalization and globalization sa ating mga accreditation, government regulation, and your status when it comes to government permits. So it will help you because you have global partners and cooperation. Second is, I guess it's for research, that if you collaborate, you share, there's a shared resources and shared responsibilities. So the burden will not be that heavy for one institution, because you will share the responsibility and of course the benefits. And then it should translate to national and global programs. So how can you do that? Let's say from the student research or student business plan that they created, and it is something wonderful that the national our community will benefit from it, or even the whole Philippines will benefit from that project or from that services that they are proposing, and then eventually we'll go to global platform. Then that's one of the best impact you can give when it comes to globalization and internationalization, right? So now we'll talk about digital collaboration for educators, so personal professional learning network, or the PLN. So you can use your social media. Again, I already discussed it partly in one of the slides, but it's more of you as a teacher is embracing internationalization in your classroom, regardless if the institution mandated you. It's more of a personal effort to extend your services, or to give something additional to your students. If you have international networks abroad, and your friend is a teacher abroad, and you think he could be part of one of your lesson, then invite that person. Anyway, we're doing it virtual, so there's no need for you to send ticket, airfare, accommodation to your friends abroad just to teach your students. So since we're doing it like this, So you can just message your friends abroad in Facebook if they're free on this day, they're free on that time, and if they're free, if they're willing to join you or to be one of your lecturer or one of the teachers to discuss a specific topic on that schedule, then that's gonna be wonderful. Of course, you still have to ask permission to your principal if you're from basic education, and I don't think they will. I mean, they will take it against you, or they will not see it as a good. I mean, they will not see the positive impact of it. Definitely, they will appreciate it somehow. So expand your network, talk to your idol abroad, a teacher that you look up, whether you know it or not. So you could also expand your relationship or expand your linkages. Just try to talk to them. Try to talk to these people who could help you in giving international perspective or global perspective in your own classroom. So you could try it. It's about building network, uh, um, um, building linkages. In the same way, you could also be invited by that person in their classroom so that you will be able to also share your perspective in their classroom or to their students. So yeah, you have to build your professional learning network. So I am giving you some ideas of what activities can you do for internationalization. Of course, all of this is you should work on it virtually, but all these activities are also possible, or this is actually for face-to-face. A face-to-face in nature activity, but you can still do it virtually. You can still do it virtually. So invite virtual international visiting professor or teacher in your classroom, even for 1 or 2 sessions to talk about certain topic. Let's say your topic is about anatomy or parts of the body. You can ask someone who is expert on that to talk just for 1 session in your classroom. Sometimes, I mean, you don't have to pay them, because in the virtual world, sometimes you feel bad asking for I mean, I mean, personally, I don't want to receive anything in return if it's like virtual platform. I mean, financial, I mean, honorarium, I should say, honorarium from someone who invited me, because this is a virtual platform. But of course, if they will give you, and I mean, it's a good thing. But it's kind of awkward to ask for it. So, and if you're friends, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, you can haggle, or you could ask them if they could do it for you, or a certificate will do for that invitation. So you could invite them. Anyway, this is virtual, so you don't have to spend that much. Again, your virtual charm, your virtual hospitality, and your virtual smile will work in this virtual activity for internationalization and globalization. Second, virtual exchange professor or teacher. So we could ask, you could create a program wherein you will teach their classes in their institution online, and their teacher will teach your class here or class load here in the Philippines. So it's just exchange of work, exchange of classroom, exchange of virtual classroom, exchange of virtual students. So basically, that's what virtual exchange teacher is all about. You can invite international speakers in your virtual classroom, or a professor teacher of the day, which I already mentioned. You could conduct virtual conference like this, symposium, research presentation, forums, and others virtually. Maybe for basic education, you could create a conference wherein their students, grade 3 students there and your grade 3 students here would meet virtually. They could talk, they could chat, they could also build connections, so they could also appreciate diversity. And at a young age, you're teaching them how to communicate with foreigners, how to talk uh, with uh, with these people, at least even though it's virtually, they're able to talk to each other, and you're able to expose them with other students from abroad. So yeah, there's so many things you could create. Probably you could have a conference for grade 5 students, and you will invite this particular person who is expert on that specific topic. Or if you're under grade 11 and 12 or senior high school, if they have business plan to present, you could invite someone, or if you know somebody who knows about business presentation and business planning, then you can invite that person to talk in your virtual classroom. And then another one that you could consider even in basic education is the virtual team teaching, wherein your grade 5 teacher here in the Philippines could partner in grade 5 teacher in Indonesia. I know there's a lot of things that you have to work on because you have to check the content, you have to check all these things and that and that. But there's a lot of work to do, but I think it's all worth it in the end of the day, because you're able to give a different perspective to your students. And at least there are two heads working for a specific class. You could also merge your classes virtually. Probably some of your students, the students from Thailand, the students from the Philippines, all grade 11 will be in one platform, and the two teachers will discuss something, will discuss perspective from the Philippines, will discuss perspective from Thailand, and all those things that you can discuss in the classroom. You can merge them because it's possible now in this platform. Before, we could only probably accommodate 40 students max in the classroom, but now 100, 200, that's possible when it comes to digital platform. So you could do team teaching with other institutions abroad. And then you could also do online benchmarking, that you talk to different administrators, you talk to different teachers from abroad virtually. So you could discuss your best practices in your institution and their best practices in their institutions that you could also adopt in your own institution. And you could also do virtual exchange students, so they will be enrolled in your institution, but you will credit they will credit the students' grades in their institution. At the same time, you could ask your students to enroll in their institution, but you would also credit what the students get from that class in your institution. So this is virtual exchange students. So, and then invite international virtual thesis dissertation or supervisor. So if, like for senior high school, I believe you have research, since you'll do the defense or proposal defense online, maybe you could invite someone from abroad that you know is an expert of these things. You just have to try to communicate with them and talk to them if they could join and sit down on trying to assess your students' work or output. So for higher educational institution and graduate school, undergraduate and graduate programs, you could also invite international thesis supervisor, examiner, or panel in that because of digital platform. Yeah, so you could also invite, I already mentioned it, virtual international presentation, thesis, dissertation, panelist, examiner in your class. Then joint virtual conference, symposium, research presentation, and forum. What you can do is partner with one institution in Thailand, maybe your a basic education institution here in the Philippines and a basic institution in Thailand. You can create a virtual conference together, you plan together, you work together. So you learn different culture, you learn different best practices as well with them virtually. This is another thing, virtual body system with international students. So probably just two classes and you could partner each of the students. They could talk virtually. They could communicate virtually. They will create a certain project and you will both institution will credit that project that the two students have worked on. Or probably you create a group in a class and then half of the group will be from the class in the Philippines and half of the group will be from the class in let's say in Cambodia. So you can merge the students so that they will be able to have a glimpse of how to work with foreigners or how to work with other people outside your country. So yeah, that's something that you could also do. And then virtual international internship and exposure. This is one of the challenges we really encounter in higher educational institutions uh, because you know internship is really first-hand. It should be first-hand experience, probably in a company, in the classroom, or in a hospital. But it's really quite challenging during the pandemic, during lockdown. But fortunately, because of technology, we can still do it. As I mentioned, we have education students who are taking now their internship in Indonesia, so it's possible. So they're teaching virtually. They're doing their practice teaching virtually with several students in Indonesia, several students and institutions in Indonesia. So you could do it. You could work on it. Let's say communication students, they could be hired, not hired, they could work as a graphic assistant or a marketing assistant virtually for a specific virtual company or a specific company who works using technology or who in which their function is about technology or application and so on. Let's say Grab, they could work in Grab company for IT students or for other programs that they need for their company. Okay, so and some other hybrid program, distant learning, virtual university. Someone is writing in the screen. All right, so transnational education, twinning program. These are hybrid programs that you need to study when it comes to policy and regulations of the government. But basically, you can do it. You can still do it. You can still offer degree programs virtually now that we are in the pandemic. We're more relaxed when it comes to policy and regulations now. So how to sustain? I only have one slide to sustain it because how to sustain this program because I'll eat so much of the time if I will extend. I mean, I will focus on sustaining it because there's a lot of things to do to sustain it. But in a nutshell, the virtual world is borderless and limitless. So in this time of pandemic, we just have to continuously communicate with our partners, with our existing partners. We just have to let them know that we are fine and we're doing good and we're ready to create international virtual projects with them. So you just have to make them feel that you're really interested in doing virtual programs and and projects. You have to continue to linkage and develop more partnership and collaboration. Continue on talking to people, to continue on searching to different organizations, different institutions where you could help together to build one programs and one activity. That's the only way to sustain at this point, to communicate virtually, to state your intention, to maybe present a proposal with them so that they will be able to know what they could get in that specific proposal. It's really more on communicating with your partners, and you're really interested in doing it despite the situation, and you're really committed to do it even though it's virtually. So that's the only way to sustain it at this point. In a nutshell, communicate with them, create project, propose project with them, continue to approach people, continue to approach institutions that you think you think can help you in pulling out one international activity or one international program. It's about communication and building more linkages, building more partnership and collaboration. At this point of time, they're really open to do it because, as I mentioned, internationalization and globalization should not stop because of the pandemic. Maybe physical mobility, we freeze probably that physical mobility, but one way or another, we will be back to normal. And I believe when we get back to normal, we will appreciate more this kind of activity. And probably since we saw the benefits of it, we will still continue to do more digital activity or virtual activities so we could reach out more students, so we could give international perspective to most of our students. Because if it's face-to-face, because of the limitation when it comes to financial resources, we are limited. But now we have this platform, we have started doing virtual activity, virtual international activity. We're more limitless. We could embark more students. We could give our students that international perspective and global perspective that they need. So we could engage more students in a virtual platform. But again, of course, going there abroad is still amazing. But if you want to reach out more students to join a specific program, virtual or digital activity would really help you reach out to these students. All right, so that's how you will sustain it. Now, to end my presentation, borders are closed, but I think we become closer more than ever, particularly in the academy or in the field of education, because of this, we're able to reach out to our friends, to talk or to talk in our class or to share something in our class. Because of this, we're able to build more partnership, even though we don't see them. And because of it, we become closer because we have one goal with our partners. So maybe we will not get back to that normal soon, but at least we have this platform to be more closer. Maraming salamat po, and I hope you learned something from this plenary session. Thank you.
Thank you for the tips you've shared with us, Sir Harold. The platform is now open for questions and comments addressed to Dr. Bueno. Again, please use the chat box found at the center bottom of the screen. Sir Harold, I have a question for you, sir.
Yeah,
Because surely
sure, sure.
there will be skills required from students and organizers before we could implement global and international programs in our institution. But now that we are in a pandemic, how do we adjust these required skills in such way that we do not sacrifice quality?
You mean in translating international activities and
Yes, sir.
programs? Yeah, I
Because
mean,
we have listed skills required for them, right,
mhm,
sir? So how do we still push through with that without sacrificing the quality po?
mhm. Yes, I think we just have to continue translating it, and we just have to continue to develop our teaching and learning skills with international perspective, or we should continue our efforts in making sure that the students will be able to feel that they are in an international classroom if that's what you want them to feel in your class. So there's a lot of ways. You just have to be creative. I think the only thing that we need is creativity on how to translate these programs and make sure that they will acquire the skills for to be a global citizen.
Now that we're in the time of the pandemic, our creativity skills would really be tested. We have
Yeah.
another question from Ms. Sharon. Thank you, Dr. Bueno, for your presentation. May I ask how we are going to address time zone issue in conducting synchronous classes with students from the other side of the world? Thank you. A good question.
Yeah, good question. But you just have to extend your efforts, particularly when it comes to time zone. But there are other ways you can do. What you can do is to record. If you are a teacher to teach in that class, you can record your talk or your activity in that class, and the person who is in charge in that class abroad would facilitate the whole session. Probably you need to plan ahead. That's I think that's the key there. You plan ahead that you will just if you have problem when it comes to time zone, and of course not every one of us can still survive until 3 a.m. waiting for that class to be open. So maybe what you can do is just record your presentation and then give to the teacher in charge of that class in advance the activities that you want them to do.
Yes, sir. That
Yeah.
would do. We will have it recorded, or there has to be a mutual agreement with regard to the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ratna Adiasa, thank you, Sir Harold. Waiting for future partnership. Wow.
All
And
right.
another question,
Looking forward.
another question from Marco Mandap. Good afternoon. I would like to ask about how we can implement ways for performance-based subjects like physical education online.
All right. I think when we talk about performance based, how should I say this? If you could still do it like this, like I've seen fitness coaches doing online training with their clients. So I think it's really possible to do it, especially when it comes to performance based. They could perform in this kind of platform. I can dance in front of you. I can do my workout in front of you. So we could still do it here.
Uh,
So when we talk about performance based,
Someone
so
is
for
asking
physic.
for a sample, sir. Kidding aside. All right.
I
Okay.
think I saw one question also here.
I think I've already asked that, sir.
Yeah, there's this one.
Yeah.
I hope you can answer this question after your talk. DepEd has a special program in foreign language. However, only selected students are accommodated and few schools are implementing the program. Is that a form of internationalization in basic education? Yes. That foreign language class is it's an internationalization effort of DepEd, I would say. However, it's limited, and there are only selected students in school and institution, but probably because of financial resources. Because again, this is they need to hire teacher to reach out. To teach the students. As I mentioned a while ago, since we're using digital platform like this, so DepEd now could have reached out to more participants. Like if they will pay me to teach foreign language and they have Zoom account for 500 participants, then that means 500 students will be able to learn from my discussion.
So this will now be concerning the entire hiring process and all of that,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
All right.
yes.
Another question from Vicente Mangilaya II. What is your view on the politics of internationalization? For instance, one state university could not have the proper budget for it due to a conflict in political interest. Right.
You know what? It's happening, and sometimes, as much as we want to stop this kind of things to happen, our hands are not capable to do it, and we are not in the position to really change that system. Maybe we could challenge the box, but it's really difficult to really push for it. And if that's the case, if there are issues like that, if you're really into internationalization, do it on your own. Because again, if you will do it on your own, not we're not doing it for the institution itself, but we're extending our hands, and we're doing it for our students. Like if you will invite international your friend from abroad who can speak in your class just for one session, it's not about the organization already. Sorry, it's not about your institution already. It's about you extending your hands to your student, or extending your effort for your students. So let's just be positive about it. I mean, if the government will not be able to provide funds for you, look for funds for your internationalization, because there are international organizations who are willing to fund your internationalization projects and globalization. So look for funds if that's the problem and concern. And yeah, it's normal. I mean, we're living in a very unfair world. So if we will dwell on that, we'll not move on. But if we will try to look into what we have, and try to expand our linkages and partnership, then internationalization could still be possible, even if it's not in your institution, but at least in your classroom.
Right. I also think that's a very good advice, sir. Relevant to that, I have another question that I've prepared earlier. Talking about luxury or the idea
Mhm.
of privileges, I think the number one concern is still budget, even if there are lesser requirements for the borderless category, the one you've showed earlier.
Uh-huh.
But how do we ready educational institutions who are yet to start if they do not have this kind of luxury yet?
You mean the platform?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you mean, the platform?
Yes, sir.
What I mean about luxury is like going abroad. So like when the first in a glance, what we think about internationalization and globalization is for students, or for us to go abroad, or a physical mobility. So that's my sense of luxury. Now we could still consider internationalization virtually as luxury. And again, yes, we are limited when it comes to connectivity. Not all are capable of having that connectivity. So the teacher could also extend them. Again, you just have to be creative and extend your hands to those students who will not be able to do it virtually. But again, you can record it and probably give the copy to your students so they could watch it. Not I mean, in the other time. So probably that's one strategy you can do if
So
we're not yet ready.
we'll have to again take the baby steps before
Uh-huh.
we could finally start it. All right.
We just have to
Maybe
start.
yeah. Okay. But that's the most difficult thing to do, sir. To start. Okay. May we again invite the managing director of AJPE, John Angelo De Leon, for a discussion with the plenary speaker.
Sir Angelo.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for a very wonderful discussion about globalization. As you have mentioned earlier, um, you have discussed the idea of internationalization and its connection to the basic and higher education. So I just want to ask, say we have prospective participants here who would want to, engage in a partnership with other institutions here or in abroad. Would you give them some tips as to where they would go? That's possibilities that they can, go through.
The first thing you have to do is to really search, probably in the internet, of those schools that you have in mind, and look into the programs you have or the programs you're offering in your institution, and try to look into their strength, because you want to partner to someone who has the same strength as yours, probably, or with the same program that you are offering in your institution. So just try to search in the internet, and you look for institution that you think would help you. And sometimes per discipline, we know already this institution. Like if we mention about like in our case in hospitality and tourism, who are the best in Southeast Asia, who are the best in Asia Pacific, who are the best in Americas, and who are the best in Europe. Try to communicate with them. For sure, their website contact details are in the website, so you can easily get their contact details there, and try to reach out with them, and try to email them of how could you start partnership with this institution. Per available opportunities where you could get it, you join OYA opportunities. I'll send it to you, because this website is all about opportunities abroad, where you could get possible scholarship, possible competition to join, possible conferences, free conferences, possible training related to your field, whether it's in education, whether it's in higher education or other field, or higher education or basic education. I will put it in the chat box so that you could access it. This organization, if you will log in and if you will sign in this organization, automatically you will receive different opportunities abroad. So they'll email you. They'll email you of different opportunities abroad. Of course, not all those opportunities is applicable to you, or you will not be qualified in, or some of in some of the opportunities, probably you'll not qualified, and there are those opportunities that you could also qualify. But again, you could just try it and check it.
All right. Thank you, Sir Harold. I think our participants would really appreciate the necessary help that you would give them as far as the globalization and internationalization is concerned. Yan lang.
Okay, thank you, Sir Angelo. And again, thank you for your expertise, Sir Harold. We have another question from Dr. Laurel Liven Luan. Sir, how do you post debriefing of exchange students or faculty members?
Is this post evaluation, ma'am?
Maybe we can
Yeah.
ask Dr. Lorelai
Yeah.
to unmute
How do you post
herself.
the briefing? It's more of a post evaluation of the program. I'm
Ma'am
mistaken.
Lorelai.
That includes the program po, sir, and even well, the psychosocial part, like how they felt and what challenges and how they cope with those challenges that they have faced when they were outside the country and in dealing with their faculty members and classmates po. So it's a holistic ano, sir, debriefing.
Right. So when it comes to, I mean, in FEU, our practice po is we usually have this agreement with them that, and part of the agreement is when they come back, they have to come in the office. So we will talk about their experiences. We'll talk about their recommendation as well if we will continue with the program, and we will talk about the challenges they have experienced in the program and everything that they want to share, and then from that sharing we know what to do if they have concern when it comes to psychological, I mean, if they have psychological concern, then another unit is in charge of that. We will endorse the student to that office. But basically po, we talk to them because it's part of the agreement, and we asked that their general experiences and some other specific included in that post evaluation. We ask them to evaluate the program as well if they will recommend the program to be offered in the succeeding years or semesters. And we value their comments and suggestions. And we do also eco seminar. So if we send students to Canada, let's say 2 students, when they come back here, what we usually do is to ask the students to share with a number of audience with FEU students what they have experienced or what they have learned in that specific conference. In a way, we're not able to send many in Canada, but at least they're able to translate some of the knowledge or information they have get in Canada to our students here in the Philippines. I hope I'm able to answer your question, Dr. Lorelei.
Do you have a follow-up question, Dr. Lorelai?
Okay po, maraming salamat po sa sagot.
Thank you po.
Yung concern ko lang din po, like, it's like an individual thing. Wala rin po bang group or tapos po, saka po ibibigay sa group of students na gusto rin na maging, kumbaga, those who are interested also to join some other time.
Yeah, we don't have a specific group for this student, but I think it's a good recommendation that we'll have this kind of group so that they're able to have a more conversation, or this group could also help us in creating new projects and programs for international relations. But so far we don't have group. What the group that we have is in Facebook group. We call it FEU Internationalization Alumni, wherein our international students, our inbound students who join our programs here in FEU, we ask them to join that group so we could update them on the next programs that we will offer, and we could also give them information about FEU, or they could also communicate or build connections with our students in that particular group in Facebook.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lorelai. And again, thank you, Sir Harold. Many thanks. Right. Maybe we can now proceed with the awarding of certificate. In expression of our gratitude, we award the Certificate of Appreciation to Harold Bernardo Bueno for delivering the plenary speech, Internationalization in the Classroom in the Midst of Pandemic, at the first International Conference on Multi-Perspectives in Education, ICoME 2020, with the theme Fronting Perspectives in Education, Education's Response to Pandemic on November 25 to 27, 2020. Given this 27th day of November 2020 at Far Eastern University, Manila, Philippines, signed Rosarito Swatenko, Ph.D., Conference Director.
Thank you.
All right. May we now call on Angelo De Leon, Managing Director of AJPE, for some announcements and reminders.
Let me just share my our presentation for AJPE. Okay, can everyone see it? Yeah, I think everyone sees it. Again, thank you so much for being with us in this conference. So this is just some reminders for the journal. With that reminder, I'm just gonna provide a quick introduction. If you have not read AJPE's guidelines on the website, this is, I think, our opportunity to introduce it to you. So AJPE is the Asian Journal on Perspectives in Education. It's part of this conference. The initial primer of it is the AJPE is a scholarly and multidisciplinary journal focused on educational issues, reflection on practices, regional narratives of knowledge production, both theory and practice. As you are seeing on the screen, it's a flagship project of the FU Institute of Education. It's an open access.
Excuse me, Sir Angelo.
Yes.
May we request that you click the slideshow po, so we can view the entire screen.
All right. Sorry. Okay. Like I said, it's a flagship project of the FU Institute of Education. It's an open access, double-blind, peer-reviewed international journal. The anchor of it, it's on the critical and interpretative discussion of epistemologies of the South on the areas of academic undertakings, theoretical explorations in education, current and societal issues affecting education. So the idea of the South is not the geographical definition that you might probably assume as you are seeing this. It's more of the idea, more of the knowledge that's coming from the South. So the themes are, we welcome different manuscripts with the themes that's anchored on the different themes that you see on the screen, primarily on ethnicity, class, gender, diversity in education, cultures and discourses in educational organizations in both basic and higher education, education policies and reforms. We have also paradigmatic beliefs in learning and teaching and the conceptualization of curriculum field. Next, we also we also accept manuscripts that's about the history of education, regardless of its policies and reforms and its relations to Asia-Pacific systems. Teacher education, its role in nation building. I think this is mostly one of the most submitted and most presented papers in this conference. Oppressive nature of education, and also in technology and education and innovation in teaching and learning. Submissions and categories of articles. So the first one is research articles. This is the traditional research articles that you probably are used to. And also we require that articles to have an analytical, critical, evaluative slant and not merely be descriptive. So this is out of the 2 points that's in here. The second point are the things that we mostly focus on if we have submissions on the journal. We have the reflexive paper, an academic essay that is concise, critical, and reflective on the teaching and learning practices of that's relevant to the author's subject area or discipline. It gives one's in-depth teaching and learning practices. This presents the personal narratives of the ones who's writing it and how they were able to at least experience teaching and specific learning in their own context that's based on their own reflection. Also, we cater to education and evaluation papers. That's also anchored on theoretical and analytical framework to scrutinize the policies being investigated. Okay, lastly, the academic commentaries and book reviews. So if you may have papers that caters to these submissions that we are presenting to you, you can email us. I'll provide the email at the end of the slide. So updates. We had just released our maiden issue last October. We have provided a variety of topics in education. So these are the 4 initial parts. We have the Indigenous People Education, Philippine K-12 Curriculum on Perspectives of Science Education, Transformational Academic Leadership, and Gamified Learning Activities in Language Acquisition. So you will see that we have a diverse acceptance of manuscripts. We don't necessarily focus on a specific discipline, as long as it's related or exhibiting the facets of the Global South. Hey, so this is the website that I was talking about earlier. You can view this on the FE website, or you can search on Google Asian Journal on Perspectives in Education. This is the initial screen that you will see on our webpage. So once you click the latest issue, you will see the current issues that we had just released that I had just mentioned earlier. Okay, for the call for papers, submissions for the second issue of the Asian Journal on Perspectives in Education are ongoing. Originally, we had it set deadline on November 30th. It's going to be next week, but we were thinking that because of this conference, there might be some authors who might want to submit to the journal. So the team and I were able to agree on a specific date, on a later date, which is January 15, 2021. Okay. As I've said, you can email your manuscripts if you may want to ask questions about how the journal works, what's the process of the journal, or how the journal does its processes as far as the revisions and so on and so forth. You can email us at ajpe@fu.edu.ph. This is the actual call for paper that we are currently releasing to different social media networks. The content here is the same with the one that I discussed. So as I've said, if you may want to ask questions, you can email me, or you can email the contact details. We are based on the Institute of Education, Far Eastern University, Manila, 6th floor, Education Building. You can visit our website at www.fu.edu.ph. You just have to link their Institute of Education, and you'll see the whole profile of the faculty, and also under which is the journal page. As I've said, the email is here, and if you want to, talk to us in person, you may want to call us by these telephone numbers. Thank you so much, and hopefully we will see your manuscripts, and hopefully we can work something out at some point during the course of the next few months and days. Thanks again.
Thank you for the heads up, Sir Angelo. We humbly apologize for the technical difficulty we've experienced earlier. We would like to again play the recap video of yesterday's events.
Educators, as researchers, as administrators, I think it's our job to at least identify these groups and bring some help, or at least make them understand that education in general is there to help them.
You mentioned about privacy in an internationalization classroom. How has it changed now that we are working behind our screens? Like, how were you able to keep up with the new normal virtually?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was some of the professors that spoke to me. I have professors that teach Chinese history. I have professors that teach about LGBTQ issues, and some of them, they were, when they're teaching in their classroom, they can share their opinions and talk about geopolitical topics or topics around, like, for example, LGBTQ. It could even be in poetry or short stories that address those issues. And suddenly, I think faculty realized that they could actually be putting students at risk if they say something that could be seen as politically incorrect or maybe taboo in a particular family or culture.
And I think the concern I have now is not for our usual school concerns within the classroom, but teaching or helping migrants integrate in their host countries. The fact that it's difficult to access this healthcare because of a different language, and yet there's also this racist attitudes which need to be overcome. Okay, so it's a reproduction of inequality, and despise Rennie and Barreto despise this othering towards Asians. Okay, language directed toward foreigners and migrants have also been, or has also been specifically discriminatory because of COVID. Okay, most especially those with Chinese and other East Asian ethnicity. So it takes effort from the government to put up more signs from companies. So it's not really just the job of the government or the school, but everyone.
Again, in behalf of AJPE, GST, and IRO, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for your compliance from the submission of abstract to the presentation proper. Now, we'll have to move on to the second to the last stretch of the program, the awarding of the outstanding paper presenters. We award this certificate of recognition. We would like to request that once your name is called, please kindly turn on your camera, because after the awarding, we are going to have a photo op with all the awardees. All right, we'll now head on to the awarding proper. We award this certificate of recognition to Lorelai Rehilme Vinduan, Jenaina Redrino, Giovanni Pelobilio, Sudirman Sidik, and last but not least, Maria Teresa Rivera. May we request that you turn on your camera, please, so we could have the photo op. All right, for being an outstanding paper presenter in the first International Conference on Multi-Perspectives in Education, I'm just reading out the content of the certificate, ICoME 2020, with the theme Fronting Perspectives in Education, Education's Response to Pandemic, on November 25 to 27, 2020, given this 27th day of November 2020 at Far Eastern University, Manila, Philippines. Signed, Dr. Rosarito Swatenko, Conference Director. Congratulations to all.
Congratulations to all the awardees. Congratulations, everyone. Dr. Sotenko, maybe quick photo with the awardees. May I please ask the awardees to open their cameras? Yes, for Sudirman, we will correct your name.
Sir Harold, I think some of them cannot turn on their camera because the camera is being used by their children for their exams. So I think I'd like to again reiterate the name of the awardees. Again, congratulations, Lorelai Regilme Binluan, Sinaina Redrino, Giovanni Pelubilio, Sudirman, and Maria Teresa Rivera. Okay. On to the final stretch of the program.
Congratulations again to everyone.
Yes, sir. Congratulations again to everyone. On to the final stretch of the program. Chini Dino Aparicio, Conference Co-Director, will now cap off our 3-day conference.
Congratulations to all present.
Thanks so much, Ms. Sybil. May I check if my screen is already projected?
Yes, ma'am, we can already see the screen. The presentation, I mean.
Okay. Thank you. So we're now down to our last and one of the awaited parts of any conferences or events. And allow me to first encourage everyone's participation by going onto their chat box and maybe expressing their thoughts or their congratulations themselves. Maybe you should congratulate yourself for being able to participate in this 3-day conference. Congratulate yourself if you are a presenter or if you are a speaker. And if you are one of our viewers or our avid participants in the 3-day conference, please congratulate yourself too. And of course, to our organizers, please go ahead, go to the chat box and express your heart's message or your heartfelt message to the world as we are international. Okay, so I'm already seeing people chatting or expressing their congratulations. Or maybe you feel proud that you're able to reach this far in this conference. So spread love and spread congratulations. Thank you so much. You can keep that coming as I proceed to my last remarks, which I'm doing on behalf of the team. So I want to give this in a form of a story. So it all began with a why. And later we'll talk about the answer to this why. Let me start with the story of ICoME 2020. It all started when the 3 departments or 3 areas or offices of Far Eastern University gathered and thought of something that they can offer, like a response to their responsibility to the educational arena or to the world in particular? That may be dreamy, but that was actually the question. And it all started with why. But then we talked about it and we said, why not? So we talked of putting a national conference and dream bigger and thought that why not have it as an international conference? And so ICoME 2020 began. Now we started asking how can we make the participants getting input not only from the people around, not only from the organizers and admins of the institution, but also from the participants themselves. Some looked for website while it's on its way to publication, so we had to expedite it. And so we had the website. We wanted to make it organized for you, so we had it via Eventbrite, side by side our regular emails. And we gave you the programs and all the links that and all the possible ways that we can offer so that we can expedite this. And then that's for our response to our decided theme. Now, still after planning on it, we still asked why? Like, why ICoME 2020? And so just remember, this conference is by you and for you. And so in response to that, let's talk about what we had in the past 3 days. We had amazing speakers. We had a bunch of collaborators who were able to collaborate with our fellow participants. We socialized. We now have future projects. We have presenters, and we're able to make partners. And this just shows great workmanship of the people that had participated in their field, their specialization, and their institution. So still the question is, why ICoME 2020? And if the question is still there, I think we now know the response to it. Over the 3 days, I've been thinking, why ICoME 2020? Why not other activities? And the response is very clear. We are unanimous in this response in saying that this is our commitment to quality. And speaking of responsibility we have, or what response we could have, this is quality, because quality is everyone's responsibility. And when I talked about the workmanship of the people that participated, from the speakers down to the presenters and the participants, it's quality, which is the pride of workmanship. And then when we made it, when we presented, when we planned for it, we put everything, which is in a service or product that is not what we put into, but is at what you can get. Quality in a service or product is not what you put into it. It is what customers, what participants, what you get out of it. And still, if we're not done with the definition, or we're not satisfied with the definition of quality, here's another definition for you. Quality is not an act. It is a habit. Your attendance here in ICoME 2020 is a habit of quality. So please make it a habit. Congratulations, participants, for adding another layer of quality in education, because you are another proof of commitment to quality. You being here with us is you proving that you are committed to quality education. And speaking of commitment to quality, see you all in ICoME 2021. And if you're still asking why not? See you in ICoME 2021. And thank you so much, everyone. Mabuhay Tamaraos.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Chini. Again, thank you for all the appreciation we have received in the chat box. Again, and for the end time, we would like to express our many thanks to all the participants. This event will not be successful without your presence, of course. We hope to see you again in our next international conference.
Thank you, of course, society. Go ahead.
Hello po. Pwede